Shreveport City Council is now called to order. All requests to speak forms are due at this time. If you hadn't brought yours before, please do so. Councilman Green, would you give the invitation? Or is someone here?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, Pastor Calvin Austin. Pastor Austin. Pastor Austin. Will you lead us in, Pastor Austin? Will you lead us in prayer?
Dear God, as we come this day to take care of the business of this city, we ask that you be with these elected officials, from the mayor to all the councilmen, all the individuals that serve this city, with gratitude. Be with us now, that everything that we do, everything that will be said, will be decent and in order and receptive unto thee. For we are here not to put on show, but we're here to take care of the matters of Shreveport, Louisiana. Be with us now in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Join with me now. Please face the flag and the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Taylor. Present. Councilwoman Fuller. Here. Councilman Nicholson.
Present.
Councilman Booker. Councilman Floyd.
Present.
Councilman Green.
I'm here.
And Councilman Bowman.
At this time,
So
the
moved,
chair,
Mr. Chair. Okay.
Madam Chair, the chair would like to recognize the city attorney to speak in regards to a matter that has surfaced this morning.
Good afternoon. Pursuant to the city charter, section 4.06, if any city council member ceases to be a qualified elector or ceases to reside in the district which he represents, his office shall be deemed vacant except as otherwise provided in section 4.05. An issue has arisen with regard to one of the council people actually changing his residence, but the law talks about, in Article 38, the principal establishment is that in which he makes his habitual residence if he resides alternately in several places and nearly as much in one as in another, and has not declared his intention in the manner hereafter prescribed. Any one of said places where he resides may be considered as his principal establishment at the option of the persons whose interests are thereby affected. It also states that in addition to a person being able to have more than one residence, they can also maintain one for political purposes. It still makes that residence bona fide. With regard to the issue as to whether or not that person's position is deemed vacated, it has to be vacated by operation of law. That means being by the local district attorney, who has to file what they call a quo warranto, which is a writ mandating that that person show cause while they can hold that office, and until a judgment is effectuated, that person can't hold that particular office until his position is thereby fixed or his successor is appointed. And more importantly, for the purposes of today, the Constitution, Article 14, Section 15, specifically states that a person holding an office by election shall continue to exercise his powers and duties until his office is abolished, his successor takes office, or the office is vacated as provided by law, subject to the writ of quo warranto that I talked about previously. So all voting rights are still in effect, and everything the council does today is effective. That's my opinion.
Mr. Letier, thank you for those remarks. I want to make sure that I understand your opinion, because as you indicated, we're going to conduct quite a lot of important business today, and any question regarding whether a member of the council is, or a former member of the council is qualified to vote bears on the city's business in a very significant way. Is your opinion, Mr. Letier, that any member of the council can move out of his district and retain his seat until there is a judgment removing him from office?
Provided that he shows that he he has a resident still in that district, and provided he does not resign or dies, then he can still hold that office. That is correct.
What if he has no residence in the district he represents?
He has to, there has to be a ruling from a court pursuant to an order or a request by the district attorney showing that that person is not entitled to hold public office because he does not meet the necessary requirements, one of which being the residency. There's also some case law that talks about when a person moves out of the district but still maintains a residency, whether it be a place of business, he still has an option to prove either by showing he has another place to reside in that district before he is actually removed from office. So the seat in this particular case is still open and it's still being held by the specific council person and it's not vacant.
And this is the case even if a member publicly states to a member of the media that he is resigning, that he no longer lives in his district, and that he knows that he has an obligation under the charter to resign. All that being the case, you still think that a court has to issue a judgment removing a member before he ceases to be a member of this council?
Unless he resigns, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Latier.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes. 2 out of the chamber. Okay, does any council member have award recognition, distinguished guests?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councilman Green.
Yes, sir. I have Dr. Marquis Pierre that's here today, and she would like to come speak at this particular time.
Okay.
And also Dr. Kevel is with her today. Dr. Chris Kevel.
Okay.
Look at that teamwork, Reverend.
Dr. Marquis, you up, and you can bring whoever guest you also have. Who you say, Councilwoman, she had?
Dr. Chris Kevel.
Okay, Doc, come on up. They're
Vice
gonna give
Chancellor
a
Kevel.
presentation. Thank you.
Hey, Marquis.
I actually have some handouts for everyone. Thank you, Chairman Fleury, and to other members of the council for the opportunity to present to you today. I apologize, I ran outside when I realized I left my glasses in the car and I can't see anything that I had prepared. But we have just put together a small presentation for each of you, and I think I left one of the sheets on top of that, possibly. But for the Center for Medical Education and Emerging Viral Threats, we wanted, first of all, to come to say thank you for the opportunity for a partnership. The Center for Medical Education and Emerging Viral Threats, if you've not had an opportunity to visit the campus of LSU Health Shreveport, there's just a form that has LSU on it with a bunch of writing that's on it. That's what I was looking for. And there it is there, that's okay. We are so excited that dirt has turned and that construction is beginning on this amazing building. This is a total of roughly about $73.3 million in construction, and we wanted to come to tell you just a little bit about the building. And so for us, the Center for Medical Education and Emerging Viral Threats is more than just a building. It truly is an answer to creating sustainable economic growth, as well as an opportunity to expand our footprint as a national leader in research, where discoveries will enhance the lives of Caddo Parish, our region, and beyond. Today I have with me Dr. Chris Kevel, who is the Vice Chancellor of Research and our Dean of Graduate Studies, just in case you have some questions relative to the CEVT. But I also wanted to share with you that we wanted to make our case and why it was important. LSU Health Shreveport is the 6th largest employer here in Shreveport-Bossier, and we have a total of 2,703 employees. That is separate and apart from the Ochsner LSU. When you add those together, we are by far almost to 5,000 employees. And that we are a major player in this region. Our economic impact is over $2.9 million, right at about $3 million. So for each graduating physician that we have, it generates an average economic impact of about $2 million. That's an average of about 11.9 jobs and 8.3% of Louisiana's gross state product, according to the American Medical Association. Now, the Center for Medical Education includes our Center for Emerging Viral Threats on our campus, and it serves as our safety net for this particular region and in support of its community health mission, and in conjunction with the partners across the state, the region, a team of scientists, a team of physicians, nurses, laboratory technicians, technologists, administrators, and managers based at LSU Health Shreveport since the onset of COVID-19 pandemic have worked hand in hand with our Louisiana Department of Health, with our community hospitals, and with the city of Shreveport, along with many other faith-based organizations, to mitigate the consequences of this unprecedented event. No other medical center in this state has this type of capability. LSU Shreveport has led Louisiana and much of the nation in its COVID-19 response, beginning from March 2020, when the creation of the Emerging Viral Threat Lab actually began. I have to tell you that it's a noteworthy accomplishment, was followed by life-saving clinical trials, expanding testing largely, ultimately large-scale community vaccination clinics to include outreach to the medically underserved throughout Shreveport. And it's brought national and international recognition for its significant contributions and the discovery of new variants. What we are asking for is $1 million of the $73.3 million. And in your slide presentation, which I told you I was not going to read the entire thing, there is a funding structure page that says the total project cost is $73.3 million. The total state contribution is roughly $41.6 million, which represents about 57%. The local and federal contributions, which your $1 million is included in, is $7 million, which represents about 9%, and the total private contributions is $24.7 million, which represents about 34%. And so the contribution that you are given actually leads toward our local effort and maintenance of support that we receive from the state through capital outlay, and we appreciate Reverend Green and Councilwoman Fuller for their leadership in helping us to try to secure these funds. I want to take just a brief moment, since I brought Dr. Kevel here, so he could share with you just a little bit about what's going on with the Center for Emerging Viral Threats. And also just to let you know, this evening, if you want to drive by, it's going to be an amazing event for us, because we should have about 35 concrete trucks that are going to be on our campus beginning to pour concrete today. Dr. Kevel?
Thank you, Dr. Pierre, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the council, as well as the mayor, for your unwavering support to both the CEVT mission and LSU Health during the times of the pandemic. As Dr. Pierre mentioned, the request that we have before the city will not only help maintain what it is that we have started, but will take this to a completely and entirely new level. Just to give you some data, promise not to go into great detail, but we've now done over 100,000 different vaccinations. Just today, we uploaded the 5 millionth sequence of the virus into something called the GISAID database, and are still the leading sequencer of virus in the state of Louisiana. Just to tell you the impact of this, over the past week, colleagues that I've spoken with at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, the Medical College of Wisconsin, the University of Oregon, have all been unanimously and deeply impressed. And now at the federal level, Washington, D.C. is looking to us here in Shreveport, Louisiana to help lead the way and provide an example of how to handle a pandemic in the future. This new CEVT building will provide and establish us here at LSU Health Shreveport as a destination for both education as well as research and development. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Kevel. And I'd just like to say that this partnership and appropriation, as I've stated earlier, will demonstrate that local support to the state for the capital outlay process and help us to realize our full potential as a regional and national center of specialization in the field of virology research, viral genomics surveillance, along with coupled efforts in diagnostic education, vaccine, and the novel pharmaceutical trials. The $1 million that we would like to recognize, as we have talked to with the mayor and Reverend Green, is the name for the city of Shreveport will go in the building at the head of the assembly hall. And I want to be very transparent. We have 2 assembly halls. And so we went to the parish of Caddo as well as the city of Shreveport. And so on the other side will be the parish of Caddo. And so we are very excited for this opportunity to partner with our local government to show how we can all work together. Once again, I want to say thank you to members of the council, to the mayor and his entire team for your support for LSU Health Shreveport, and would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Doctors, first, thank you so much for being here, and thanks to LSU Health for all that it's done for this community for decades. My dad is a 1980 graduate of the medical school and spent more than 40 years of his life as an oncologist serving this community and others in Louisiana, and I'm just so thankful for the medical school and for the contribution that it makes to our city. I also thank Councilman Green and Councilman Fuller for sponsoring this legislation. This seems like a really excellent use of public funds, and it's hard to imagine a more worthy cause that the city could support. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Councilman Nicholson.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Councilman
Also,
Green.
I'd like to give my time to Councilwoman Fuller for her expressions. It's actually in her district, and so she was kind enough to do this, so I'd like for her to make the rest of the remarks.
Thank you, Councilman Green. Chairman, I'm happy to co-sponsor this with my colleague, and there's no reason to say too much since there's no resistance to supporting this, but just to echo what you said, this is skin in the game to show that we support science, innovation, and growing the med school and growing research here. Research can lead to patents, which can lead to license, which can lead to not just these cures, but also economic development in this community. And I just appreciate that we have an opportunity to invest in this. So thank you all for coming and participating in this part of the discussion and making your presentation today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No further questions? We appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to invite Anjul Smith and Fiamula Bradley up to give us a presentation about smoke-free Shreveport.
Hi, and good afternoon. I'm Anjul Smith. I'm with Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights, and we are a partner organization of Tobacco Free Louisiana and a member of the Smoke Free Louisiana Coalition. And we're here to talk about Smoke Free Shreveport. And we were here a few months ago, and we know that sometimes demonstrating bold leadership is hard, or at best very uncomfortable, and sometimes it's a little controversial. But when we know that hard decisions are the right thing to do, we just have to trust the process. And I imagine that for many of you, the smoke-free ordinance was and continues to be one of those tough decisions. Prior to passing the comprehensive smoke-free ordinance, we assessed the indoor air quality in the 2 Shreveport casinos that permitted smoking. The average air quality exceeded the EPA's threshold for what is considered to be good air. We're happy to report that the ordinance is doing what it was designed to do. And after just the first 100 days post-implementation, the air is already improved. This means healthier indoor air environments for the nearly 2,000 employees and 300,000 guests that go through those venues any given month. This is the healthy workplaces that these employees have been literally holding their breath for since 2007, when the state exempted them from the statewide law. So we thank you guys for being leaders in passing this. And like every community that seeks to introduce a new smoke-free law, there were doom and gloom stories about catastrophic losses predicted for the casinos. And while the casinos experienced a brief dip in revenue during the first month, they are seeing their numbers return to normal as the dust settles down and customers return to their familiar favorites. And as we look ahead, we look forward to undertaking some collaborative projects, not only with the local bars, but even hopefully with the casinos as well. We want to celebrate smoke-free workplaces and entertainment venues in the city. We're excited to see events that are happening where folks like the state fair, folks are coming to town for the state fair and they're getting to really enjoy these environments as well. I also want you guys to know that your decision has really inspired efforts across the country. Just after this passed, casino workers in Atlantic City, New Jersey were really inspired to organize, and they've been rallying since this went into effect, arguing for smoke-free workplaces in their environment. And they actually had, Atlantic City, New Jersey passed a statewide mask mandate that included no smoking, drinking, or eating in any venues. So all the casinos in Atlantic City were smoke-free for a year. And when that mask mandate expired, so did the smoke-free piece of that. So those employees worked in a smoke-free environment for a year. They knew what it was like. And when that expired, and then they saw other places like Shreveport, they tell us Shreveport inspired them to go back and argue. And they're still working today to get, and the governor said he will support it. Like, they are really fighting for this. 2 of the most profitable casinos in Pennsylvania, when their mask mandate expired, have decided to continue being smoke-free because operating as a smoke-free venue is profitable. And most recently, just a few days ago, the Navajo Nation. I know we always hear stories about tribal casinos and their sovereignty and that they'll never do this. The Navajo Nation passed the Air is Life Act of 2021, making all of their indoor workplaces, including all of their casinos, smoke-free. And those are things that have happened because you guys made this bold move to pass a smoke-free policy and to protect your employees and residents in a time that's considered to be kind of challenging for those kinds of policies. So we thank you guys for that bold leadership, and we want to continue to update you and let you know how things are going. But I also want to introduce Fiamula Bradley, who also has a few words to share with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Council Chair, Mayor Perkins, and members of the council. 100 days ago, you implemented and you put Shreveport on the map. As Anjul stated, not only has Shreveport benefited from your bold actions, but other communities have benefited as well. What you have done you have made sure that there is now health equity in the workplace of those individuals who work in the hospitality industry. That has not gone unnoticed. And for that, today, we would like to recognize you. At this time, Mayor Perkins, would you join me, please, sir, on behalf of yourself and the council? It's says, "Healthier Air for All, Shreveport Mayor and City Council members in recognition of implementing a 100% smoke-free indoor policy, August 1st, 2021. We want to thank you, and we want to say thank you all for keeping your promise."
Ladies, before you step down, I'll say what you already know, which is that this legislation absolutely would not have happened without your efforts in particular. I know you had a big team behind you, but you two were just incredibly effective and passionate, and I'm so deeply grateful for the time and energy and effort you devoted to our city and to the workers that this legislation protects. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to call Mr. Wendell Delaney.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Let me first say good evening to the council, to the mayor and his staff. On behalf of Councilman Green, I want to thank you for this opportunity to share my concern as well as the concern of my neighbors where I live. That's
Also,
Wendell
Mr.
Delaney.
Before you start, I also like to say that I was in prayer for you on Sunday. You may proceed.
You sitting beside a Cowboy fan as well. Wendell Delaney, that's 2909 Curtis Lane, Shreveport, Louisiana, where I am the president of the Neighborhood Association president. As I mentioned earlier, I just want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come down to share my concern as well as my neighbors. We are still having to deal with the Shreveport Country Club, better known, we refer to it as the jungle. 20 years ago, I moved back to Shreveport, and purchased a home on the golf course because myself and my son, we're avid golfers, and we like to play golf on a regular basis. Since that time, the golf course has shut down in 2016. The place have not been kept up. We're still dealing with the high grass. We're still dealing with the raccoons, the coyotes, and things of that nature. There have been some work done. They have cleaned some of the property lines, but we're still dealing with vacant buildings that got trees that fallen through the buildings. We're still dealing with the wild animals, raccoons, snakes, fox, you name it. And we just asking the council, oftentimes I see signs up saying support Shreveport Clean City. We just asking the council to help us to get this place clean.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Chair, I have one more guest.
Yes.
Pastor Brown. Pastor Brown has been coming as Brother Brown. Today he's dressed up and he's coming as Pastor Brown. He said when he got ready he would let us know, and so he's my last guest for today. Pastor Brown, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
To city chairmen, the city councilmen, Mayor Perkins, the city, everybody, I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Pastor Green, for letting me come up before you all. I'm try to be briefly today because I got a part 1 and part 2 about this. Me and the Shreveport Green, Shreveport Green, Miss Donna, and Cassandra them, we got together, and what we're working on is, I know you all have this annual cleanup day that you do, but y'all, let's be real, that's not enough. That's not enough. And by me walking the streets and by me riding around, and y'all know I don't get up and complaining and griping and anything like that, but there has to be something done about the trash and all the things that's out there and all the vacant buildings. It's ironic that brother just got up and spoke what I'm talking about. the trash and all the things that, just like Church's Chicken, they left here and they left that building just vacant. The yard ain't cut. We have to do something. And we have to do something about just people just leaving stuff. Just busted windows and everything, just cars out there. It's just, we have to educate our people. And me and Ms. Green, we had a long talk yesterday at her office. That was my first meeting. And she was going to be here today, but she couldn't be here. Ms. Cassandra, they couldn't be here. Mr. Clark, we have talked. I don't see him out there. And Mr. Terrence, I done talked to him. I done been going around talking because of the fact that we need to do something about people just leaving stuff and just leaving it there. Now, I talk to young people when they throw trash out and stuff. I say, hey, man, pick that trash up. And they say, oh, I'm sorry. I said, don't you want a job? So, Mr. Perkins, I want to talk. I want to be able to get with you all privately. And so since how we can come together during the summer and like have a cleanup, just not just during one time, but give them jobs to be able to go around cutting these yards and getting this stuff back up. Because everybody know in here, the main 3 rooms you keep in your house is your front room, your kitchen, and your bathroom. Now everybody else can go in the other room, they can just go in there. You ain't got no business in my room, But those main 3 rooms, you go in. And when we go down the streets, we want to see those main rooms, Hollywood, 7th Street, Jewella, Linwood, Hearn, all those rooms has to be looking good. And some of those rooms are not looking good because they're not being cut. The houses are sitting there. They're just sitting there and the yards, and one time Glover had it, he had a program that you couldn't park your car across your yard. But now people are parking across their yard. And those yards has grass on, they ain't seen grass on no wind. And it just, it doesn't make the city look good. Because like I told y'all when I first came up here to you all, I said to you all, when God told me, he said, what do you see, son? And I said, I see people done lost hope. And we have to get that hope back in them. Now, Brother Perkins, and you're all doing a wonderful job. Y'all know I support y'all tremendously. But I know y'all can't do it by yourselves. It's the neighborhood. It's the people. We got to come together. We have to come and take concern about our neighborhood, about our city. Because you have a slogan. I think you stole my slogan because Ms. Green said, you said, I love Shreveport. I said, no, he stole that from me because I love Shreveport. I get up there all the time. So you owe me some money on that. But we love our city, and if we love our city, then let's take care of our city. Let's make sure our city come together and do what we got to do. And so Ms. Green and I, we're going to be going to schools when they allow us come in, and going to nurses, and going everywhere, going to churches, going everywhere, and telling the people, and educating the young people, and telling them, you all, we're going to have to do better just this, what we doing. And then the next one, enforcement. We got to put a better enforcement on this thing. We're going to have to, like I said, you say you're going to get the cameras. I know everything takes time, Brother Perkins. I know everything takes time, y'all. I know it does. And I'm not rushing you. I know it takes time. But when I call property standard and they just ride by, and I'm sitting there watching them, and they told me last time, everybody, that the things that was going to happen was that is in court. Well, I'm going to make a joke here right here, y'all. People must be still on lunch at the judge office because they ain't did nothing yet. They ain't did nothing yet. And I see people, and you all, I'm tired. That's the reason why it's time for me to speak up. And it's time for us as a city to quit blaming everybody else and say, it's our city. This is our city. This is our Shreveport. And we ought to want to make it looking good and make it looking better than what it is. So I want to take on myself, because I'm retired. And so I want to get some young people, and I want to get them out there, and I want to see them I said, do y'all want jobs? They said, yeah, we want jobs, Mr. Brown. I said, okay, I'm going to go out and see, can I find stimulus money and whatever I can to get them to work. Now, some of them, they just talking, I know that. But I know there's some young people that really mean what they say. They really mean what they say. And we want to get them out there and get them going. Get them to be able, because how does a fire start? It starts with a spark. And that's what I want to do. That's my passion, y'all. That's my passion.
Pastor Brown.
That's my passion.
Pastor Brown.
Yes.
You have 1 more minute.
Okay, I'm just about through, Doc. I'm Baptist. I'm coming to the close.
But normally when Baptists say they closing it, they got 20
Yeah, you
more
know how we
minutes.
as Baptist folk, we come to that close in 1 minute, 5 times.
Just wrap it up in 1 minute. Wrap it up in 1 minute.
This is my part 1 message of you all.
Yes.
And after part 2, Brother Green, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come today. But Brother Perkins, I want to get with you all. Can I get with you, Brother Flurry? Can I get with you all? And y'all help me. Help me
Yes.
to get this thing done. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Pastor Brown, I think they have a sweep in your area on tomorrow. And
Huh?
I think they have a sweep in your area on tomorrow.
I can't hear you.
They have a sweep in your area on tomorrow.
They have a cleanup in your area tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be. It'll be in District D. I'm about to talk about it. If you're
Okay.
in District D.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm with you.
Okay.
And the environmental court is every first and third Tuesday. And trust me, those people are not happy to receive fines. They have a lot of cases that they come, so you can always come to environmental court at 9 o'clock and you will see for yourself the number of cases that the city is handling as in regards to what you're speaking about.
Okay.
We have a judge better than Judge Judy.
Okay. Okay. Now y'all know me. If I don't see nothing coming down, I'm coming back.
Well, you need to come to court.
Just like Linwood. I'm waiting on Linwood too. Thank y'all so much.
All right. Thank you, Pastor.
Mr. Chair, Dorian Ford.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Thank you guys so much for allowing me the opportunity to be here today. My name is Dorian Ford, and I bring you greetings from GIA, that's Giving Education Your All, which is a local nonprofit organization, and we do exactly what the name says. We get kids excited about education, and we get them to give it their all, right? Education is the one thing that levels the playing field, so we are dedicated to getting our kids to understanding that at a young age, and we move from there. Today we are here to get you guys to buy into our next initiative that we're doing. We are so excited to present to you guys the Shreveport Family Christmas Festival, to be held Saturday, December the 11th, downtown Shreveport. Now, we've been doing this Christmas event for about 7 years. It started out at Airport Park, and it grew over the first 3 years to where we had to send people away because we had touched that many families. The year after that, we moved it to Riverview Park, and the year after that, we moved it to Festival Plaza. So we're here today asking the city to join forces with us. You guys already have the information for the resolution, but we just wanted to stand here today and tell you guys thank you. This event is set up to help Shreveport in 3 ways. One, we are reestablishing family and community traditions. Christmas is just our excuse for us to come away from our homes and just provide positivity and fellowship. We also have our parade mixed with this. So the festival is in 3 parts. We have our family time that will give families the opportunities to play games, create different family memories, excuse me. After the family time, we have our Christmas parade that will go through downtown Shreveport. It'll start at Caddo, go down Commerce, all the way down Commerce, turn at Festival Plaza, and end there at Riverview Park. And at the end, we have our music festival that will go on at Riverview Park and will end with fireworks. So again, this is our opportunity to just show some love and positivity throughout our city. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Anybody else? Madam Clerk, is there Any legislation to be added today?
It's the mayor's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Skipped over the
No,
mayor.
no problem, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to start off on a little bit of a celebratory note. This week, we'll be celebrating those who have served this country and in the armed forces here and abroad. As a veteran myself, I understand the sacrifices that individuals and their families make to protect our freedoms in the United States of America. And I would like to take a moment to thank my fellow veterans for their service and continued love of this country. Next, there's been a lot of discussion around the health insurance plan for our employees and retirees. We put out a press release today about this, but the Healthcare Trust Fund Board will be meeting at 9 a.m. on Thursday here in the chambers. My administration will be putting forth a proposal to allow the health insurance costs for active full-time employees, retirees, and widows to remain the same as it is this current year. For 2022, we are proposing not to pass on the increase to those employees and absorb the projected additional cost of $5.2 million. However, we cannot continue to kick this can down the road. That is why the Healthcare Board will be working alongside City Council and consultants to come up with a plan that would allow us to bring our spending in line with industry standards and in compliance with the city's ordinance. Next, the Department of Property Standards is holding its next sweep in District D, Mr. Brown. On Wednesday, November 10th, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., citizens can bring trash, debris, and tires for disposal to A.B. Palmer Park at 547 East 79th Street. The Shreveport Police Department will be citing property owners for inoperable vehicles and other violations. Inspectors will be concentrated in the Cedar Grove and Spring Lake neighborhoods and will be flagging structures for demolition until noon. Public Works will also address litter and trash in right-of-ways and bulk pickup. Next, I have Mr. Drayton Dunn here as an appointee for the Downtown Development Authority. If council would like to ask him any questions, Dre, Mr. Dunn, can you come forward?
Would you, he's nominated by what appointing authority?
I'm sorry. He was nominated by the African American Chamber. Sorry, I thought you were going to ask about the council members.
Good afternoon. Thank y'all for having me. Thank you for the consideration. Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Definitely want to shout out to Shreveport-Bossier African American Chamber of Commerce for their consideration and appointment. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. Of course, I love Shreveport, love downtown Shreveport. I've been operating a business downtown for about a decade now. Started with Young Pros Entertainment in the Slattery building, where we occupied the Slattery building for about 7 years. And then started my business in Vision Media and Marketing, where we occupy space till this day at Office Hub on Milam Street. A few months ago, we acquired the 709 Texas building, which is Percy Alexander CPA, which will go under renovation soon. Tons of events, art shows, etc. that me and my team have put on, and really I just I'm happy to serve, I'm excited to serve, and thank you for the consideration.
Chair?
Yes.
I just have one question for you, Mr. Dunn.
Yes, ma'am.
What are you going to do with your facade? Is it a secret, or can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to do with the facade?
Well, first I got to pull it down because I don't know what's behind it.
I'm really excited to see what you do with that.
Next door at Terry Spot, it's brick, obviously, and that building used to be one building. They cut it in half, right? So I'm pretty sure that it's going to replicate what's on that side. So I really want to restore it back to where it was when it was an umbrella shop when they first erected that building, an umbrella repair shop. So very interesting. I want to really preserve what was there before us. So thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Drayton, I'd just like to say thank you for being you and keep up the good work, and God bless you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Pastor.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Council.
All right, Mr. Chairman. Last but not least, I'm going to have Director William Daniel come up alongside representatives from Burns and McDonnell to give us an update on the consent decree.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Chief Whitehorn, council members. I heard the discussion previously about I Love Shreveport, and when I was young, my parents would say, do you want to go to Shreveport? And I said, I love Shreveport. I was 5. That was in 1960, so y'all owe me a lot of money. So figure out a way to collect.
I think they need to switch the screens to put the PowerPoint on.
Okay. So what we'd like to do today is give a, a very brief update on the consent decree, where we are, where we think we're going with it. So we're gonna give a consent decree overview, and then we're going to talk about some of the critical projects that we're going to do as a result of the consent decree. So let me give you just a very brief overview. We have a federal mandate to eliminate SSOs, which are sanitary sewer overflows. This started probably sometime in 2010. The EPA contacted the city. Over the next 4 years, they worked to come up with a document that captured all of the things that Shreveport wanted to do and that EPA and DOJ agreed with. So on May 13, 2014, that document was signed for a 12-year compliance schedule. It was to analyze the entire collection system and eliminate all sources of inflow and infiltration and SSO under 5 phases of work that were supposed to be completed in 9 years. Phases 1, 2, and 3 were supposed to be reassessed in years 8 through 12. And any capacity improvements were supposed to be done by the end of the 12-year period. It also required that we implement what's called CMOM, which is Capacity Managed Operations and Maintenance Program within year 1. So there's kind of the timeline on in the chronological order. So 2010, we received the complaints. We completed the consent decree in 2014. There were 5 phases. Phase 1 projects were under construction from 2017 to 19. Phase 2 projects were under construction from 2018 to 20. 2018 and 2019, the Phase 3 packages were designed. And in 2020, that's when we began to see that the $350 million program that we thought we were working on was actually more like a $1.2 billion program. So the city began to reprioritize the program. We contacted EPA regarding our interest in reprioritizing and modifying the consent decree. In 2021, we began having conversations with EPA, and we basically told them that we would be doing critical projects, and we had a hard time communicating with them, but I'll get to that in a minute. And then, of course, the consent decree is supposed to end in 2026. So there are multiple parts of the consent decree. Sanitary sewer assessments, that's basically going out and analyzing what's wrong with the system, trying to find out where the SSOs are. A lot of that was dependent upon the hydraulic model, which is the third part of this PowerPoint. But based on the sanitary sewer assessments and the hydraulic model, remediation measure plans were come up with. Now, the remediation plans, they were basically just, those are solutions to the SSOs that were put forth. Those projects were then translated to design and construction. Capacity assessment. The capacity assessment was supposed to be completed by 2016, and those projects were supposed to be completed by 2026. Again, we talked about the CMOM programs. CMOM is basically just best practices. So the city complied with that measure. They put together best practices on sewer overflow response, cleaning procedures, fat, salt, and grease program, root control, asset data management, operations and maintenance manual updates. And one of the things that's in there is a private lateral program, which we will probably get to here, I hope not too distant future. So where exactly are we? Phase 1 is complete, 30 projects. We spent $190 million on phase 1. We replaced 68% of the pipes. In phase 2, it is complete. We spent $114 million on phase 2, 17 projects. We replaced 72% of the pipes. Phase 3, all of the SSAs were done. They were designed, and some construction had started. But that's basically when the program was halted due to consent decree negotiations with EPA, DOJ. Phase 4, all of the SSAs were completed, and in phase 5, some of the SSAs were completed. Capacity measures, the hydraulic model was completed. Some projects were designed, and some projects were put into construction. So phase 1 and phase 2 were completely finished. So there's the question comes up, well, if phase 1 and phase 2 are completely finished, do we have any SSOs in phase 1 and phase 2? The answer is yes, we do, for different reasons. One has to do with the hydraulic model. The calibration of the hydraulic model was imperfect, and that should be the new hydraulic model should be recalibrated by the end of the year. And also, some major capacity projects were not completed in phase 1 and phase 2, which has caused some issues. And some capacity projects were completed in some of those, which just pushed the problem down, the SSO further down in the line.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that part?
Yes. Some capacity projects were done that if there was an SSO and there was a capacity issue. And so they did the capacity problem in part of it, but there was a further capacity problem down the line that hadn't been fixed yet. So all it did was move the SSO from one place to another.
Can you break that down? When you say capacity issue, what is that specifically?
So our capacity issues in dry weather are fine. We have enough capacity, but when it rains, we lack with all the inflow and infiltration into our system, we have enormous volumes of rainwater to deal with as well. So the pipe and the pump stations are not large enough to handle the additional rainwater that's into the system. So because we have such a large problem, it basically, the pumps cannot move enough water, or the pipes are not large enough to move enough water and sewer onto the treatment plant. So what happens is it comes up at the lowest point.
So you're saying this issue is just because of the capacity of the pumps and not because of laterals from people's houses that need to be corrected?
Oh, no. The water is getting in through a lot of the private service lines.
So, but we haven't never brought that up. Like when I brought that up before, it was dismissed.
No, I'm not sure why, because EPA thinks that 50 to 60% of the water entering your sewer system as I&I comes through private laterals.
Okay, I wasn't exactly dismissed. I was said, well, we need to look at the hydraulic model. But now we're saying that in addition to the model and the pumps, that there likely is still an issue with the private laterals.
Okay, they're all connected, Councilwoman. So the hydraulic model models the amount, it takes into account the inflow and infiltration coming in to help us make the design on how big the pipe should be, how large the pump station should be.
How much is it costing us to redo the hydraulic model?
I'd have to let Burns and McDonnell get to that.
Okay, thank you.
But without the hydraulic model, we cannot accurately predict what the capacity issues are, where they will occur, and how big the pipe needs to be done. So it is an integral part of what we're doing.
Yeah, I guess what I'm worried about is that we do all of that, we do the model over, we get these bigger pumps, we get these bigger pipes, and we still haven't dealt with the lateral, so we still end up having a huge I&I problem.
Well, we are going to be dealing with the private lines, but you have to deal with what you have, and that's what we have. And every city in the United States has infiltration and inflow.
Okay, thank you.
So, let's see. So, that's where we are in compliance with the consent decree. Now, what we have done is we've contacted EPA DOJ, I think starting in 2017. They sent 3 or 4 requests to extend compliance dates, but we actually never got any response. We started talking, the city again started talking with them in 2020 and asked them for a force majeure for COVID. We never got a response. Finally, we were able to set up a meeting in 2020, November of 2020, where we had discussions with EPA. I would say they were contentious, but contentious sort of implies that 2 people are speaking. We were mostly listening to what they had to say and reacting. The next meeting, I believe, was in, do we have one in December too, or just?
One in November, one in December.
Yeah. We had one in November, one in December. Basically, we were explaining things to EPA. Then we had one scheduled for February of 2021, which was postponed due to the winter storm. Our last meeting with EPA went, I think, pretty well. They now ask us what we would like to do. We are going to give them a plan for the future for the city. The problem that we have is we raised the rates on the citizens starting back in 2014, I believe, to cover a $350 million consent decree, which was a fairly unprecedented raise. I think about 160% raise of our sewer and water fees. And it's going to fall well short of the fixing the problem. We spent over $450 million to date. The idea would be that we need more time to resolve our problems, and we have communicated that to EPA. We're going to propose a longer term, and we're going to propose critical projects. And what we want is sort of an integrated planning approach, because as February indicated as well, we also need to pay attention to our water system too. So we don't want to spend all this money on our sewer system, and I think if you look at all the money that we've spent in water and sewer, only about 8% of it has been on our water system since the consent decree started. So we cannot continue down that path as well. So we're proposing to EPA an integrated approach with critical projects to resolve our SSO issue and also to keep our water system vibrant and able to supply water to all the citizens of Shreveport. There will be other regulatory issues coming down the line. We know that there's going to be the lead line issue with the water lines to people's houses. There's PFAS issues with water. So there's lots of regulatory room, so to speak, for things to grow. There's a lot of momentum heading in that direction. So a longer time frame is inevitable, I believe. for not only the city of Shreveport, but almost anybody facing regulatory consent decrees. So that's where we're going to go. We have identified critical projects that we think will make a big difference in resolving some of our most egregious SSOs. Those are being planned and designed, and we will start working over them the next 3 years. We have submitted that to EPA. So that's where we are. Joe with Burns & McDonnell, Joe Darlington with Burns & McDonnell is going to talk about those critical projects, and then we'll be available to answer any questions that you might have afterwards.
Thank you, William, and good afternoon. Good to see all of you again. So William did a good job summarizing the status of the program, big picture ongoing discussions that the city has been having with EPA and the regulatory agencies. What I'm going to focus on today is talking a little bit more in detail about the critical projects that William mentioned. And so you all may recall that over the last year we talked about a set of projects early in 2020 that were identified to support addressing some very real reliable utility issues that the city was experiencing. Namely, there were a number of pump stations that needed to be fixed and so forth. We made some presentations last year regarding that. So that's our portfolio of current critical projects. Delivery of those has continued, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment. But what I want to spend most of our time talking about today is an additional set of critical projects that were identified after a fairly extensive capital improvement planning exercise towards the end of last year and early this year. And these are the critical projects that William talked about that really have been developed and identified using an integrated planning approach so that we make sure that we keep all of the city's compliance and utility obligations in view for both wastewater and drinking water. And so especially after some of the issues that were experienced during the winter storm in February, this is a very pressing need for the city, and so this set of projects has been developed to do that. There's really three main goals, if you boil it down, that these projects have been developed to address. One is to mitigate or address recurring locations where sanitary sewer overflows are known. We certainly are not going to address all the SSOs with this set of projects, but there are a couple of key projects that we've identified that will address some very prominent SSO locations that I'll talk about more later. There's also other regulatory compliance obligations that the city has, both wastewater and water. And the third goal is just to support, again, continued reliable utility service for the city. So in total, as we look ahead, this set of projects, considering both the portfolio that we talked about last year as well as the new projects identified in early 2021, there's a need of approximately $415 million to design and construct these projects. And I'll show you a little bit more information about them as we go forward. So this slide just presents a breakdown between water and wastewater and some detail regarding the different categories of projects. And so you can see that that this portfolio of projects represents a relatively balanced investment across the utilities, across various assets of wastewater and water utilities. On the wastewater system, we've identified 16 project packages totaling approximately $275 million. And on the water system side, we've identified about 20 packages totaling an investment of about $140 million. So again, a relatively balanced investment in the utility as we look ahead. This varies from the approach that was done over the first 5 years or so of the consent decree program, whereas William mentioned over 90% of the dollars that were spent on the wastewater system, and of that, about 85% of those dollars were on collection system assets. And so there's a lot of need to address all areas of the utilities, and we want to make sure that we do that going forward. So this slide summarizes the current critical project portfolio. This is the set of projects that were identified in early 2020. We've spoken about those before. It represents about an $89 million investment in water and wastewater. Most of the projects on this list are wastewater projects, really with a primary focus in regulatory compliance obligations. There's a critical project to replace disinfection equipment at the wastewater treatment plants. And then there's a number of pump station projects to address some very prominent issues at those facilities. On the water side, the most notable project on this list would be the major upgrade to the Amos Water Treatment Plant that's going on right now. And so today, about a third of these projects have completed construction, about a third are under construction, and there's really the remaining, there's about 5 pump station packages that are finalizing design right now and should go out to bid in the next several months. And the UV disinfection project is really the last project that will be finalizing design and going to construction.
Are we on budget for this tranche of
We are,
projects?
yeah, we are, and we certainly can provide detail on that. There have been some minor change orders across the board, but on the whole, we're within 1% of where we've been tracking against. So, and we've budgeted conservatively for them as well. So, so looking ahead now, transitioning into the new set of projects. I just have a couple of lists here, and then I'll give you some insight into some of the specifics. Talking first about the critical wastewater projects that have been identified. The first 2 that are on this list are major projects to address known recurring sanitary sewer overflows. I do have slides about these later, so I'll talk about those in a minute. We do have additional lift stations that have been identified as needing rehabilitation, approximately 15 of those lift stations across the city. We do plan to do some additional gravity sewer rehabilitation improvements. The Southern Hills Interceptor that's lower on the list is one example of a gravity sewer project. This is a major project to replace almost 5 miles of gravity sewer that's approximately 40 years old in the southern part of the city. And then there are 3 projects on our list that would be to rehabilitate or replace 3 of the largest force mains within the city. These are large diameter concrete or ductile iron pipes that convey wastewater from large portions of the city to the wastewater treatment facilities. So they are some of the most critical infrastructure within the city, and they would affect a large percentage of the residents. These are all 40 to 45 years old and are nearing the end of their useful life and will need to be replaced in the coming years. And so they've been identified as critical assets. The last item on the list for the wastewater projects is an overhaul and upgrades to the system that's used to control and monitor equipment and other control functions at the wastewater treatment plants and the pump stations. It's known as the city's SCADA system. And so we're beginning an effort to define the need and identify improvements there, but we do anticipate that that's a fairly major investment going forward. So on the water system side, there are more projects that have been identified, a total of about 14 projects here. Again, this represents a pretty balanced and well-rounded investment into the water system. These projects were selected considering the water master plan that the city recently completed, as well as considering issues that were experienced during the February winter storm. And so just running down the list here, this list of projects involves rehabilitation of the Cross Lake Dam and Spillway, which supports storage of all of the city's primary drinking water supply. It involves replacement of critical piping and valving at the Amos Water Treatment Plant, installation of standby generators at pump stations, investigation and repair of the discharge main from the 12 Mile Bayou Pump Station, which is the city's redundant water supply, replacement and upgrade of the city's water meters, rehabilitation of a couple of the city's water pump stations, rehabilitation of 2 of the city's elevated storage tanks, water distribution system and water main improvements across the city, and upgrade again to the water system, SCADA system, for reliable control and monitoring. So that's a list. We have more detail available on the Clean Water Shreveport website, and certainly can provide more detail about any particular project as we go forward. what I wanted to do now is just highlight a handful of the key projects. They're all important, they're all critical, but just for the sake of time today, I have three. The first, we've talked about before. This is the ongoing improvements to the Amos Water Treatment Plant. This project is under construction. There was a groundbreaking ceremony back in June, I believe, and so this project has been underway for several months. It is a major investment into the city's water supply system and treatment systems. This is about a $33 million construction project. It's going to upgrade ozone and chemical feed systems. Like I said, construction is underway. It should wrap up in early 2024. It's going well, and they're moving along out there, continuing to make improvements to various parts of the site. The next two projects I want to highlight are the two projects on the wastewater list that are really driven to address sanitary sewer overflows as their primary goal. The first is some improvements to address an SSO that occurs along Dilgley Drive. There are SSOs that are occurring due to some capacity restrictions at Hardy Lift Station and the downstream infrastructure of the wastewater system. Since November of 2018, there have been about 15 instances of an SSO occurring that have been reported, and so we've developed a project. Right now, there's a preliminary engineering report that's been developed, and so we're getting ready to proceed into design. The exact solution hasn't been confirmed yet, but there's basically two things that are being looked at. One would be construction of some storage within the system to store wet weather flows when they occur, and the second would be improving the capacity of the system. And so those two things are being evaluated. At this point, we believe the cost of this project is approximately $14 million. The city has made an application recently for $5 million in grant funding through the Louisiana Water Sector Program, and we expect to hear back on the results of that grant allocation sometime in mid-December. And so if the city would be awarded that, that would be a big help to completing this project. Okay, the second SSO project that we are planning to implement is really driven around addressing some SSOs that occur at the intersection of Brookmead and Querbees. So this is in around 70th Street, Gilbert Drive, Querbees Drive, that area of the city. This is another fairly major project. This project actually was part of design packages that were prepared for the Phase 3 projects previously. We did kind of reevaluate the scope of this project and confirm the extents and the needed improvements recently, and design is currently at 90% complete. So we're fairly far along with this one. This one is also a $14 million cost at this point, and this is one of the projects that is included in the general obligation bond proposal, Proposition 3 for the water and sewer projects. Okay, so just to summarize and close this up here, and then Mr. Daniel and I will be available for questions. The city intends to deliver these projects, as William mentioned. They have been submitted to EPA previously. They were included in the Year 7 annual report that was provided to EPA. We have more detail about the projects in that document. The city intends to move these projects forward, continue developing them, move them to design and construction. It really does, the actual implementation of the projects does, as always, depend on the funding that the city has available to do that. We do expect that there will be additional projects and activities and initiatives that will be identified later as we go forward. And so as the city moves forward, the city will need to continue developing its strategy to secure funding for these projects and others that will be required either under the consent decree or as part of other regulatory obligations or utility obligations, both on the wastewater and water side. We have discussed a lot with Mr. Daniel and the city staff about opportunities for federal and state financial assistance. As I mentioned, the city made an application that our team supported with recently to the Louisiana Water Sector Commission. And we are encouraged that there does seem to be some movement at the federal level for infrastructure funding as well. And so as those things continue to develop, we're hopeful that there will be more funding for the city going forward.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you both for the presentation. I just want to call back what I think I understand, because you all understand this at a very granular level, and we and some members of the public may not. First, I understand that the consent decree project that the city entered years ago concerned only sanitary sewer overflow. Is that right? Is that what the consent decree addressed?
Well, it addresses sanitary sewer overflows, but it wants us to fix all of our bad pipe, regardless of whether it contributes to a sanitary sewer overflow or not.
So that it was not limited to sanitary sewer overflow. I'm just trying to understand.
No, Councilman, there's a clause, and we're one of 2 cities that have a clause in the contract that's called find and fix. So it's not just SSOs. Most cities negotiated their way out of it because of how costly it is and how ineffective it is in the grand scheme of the system. But we have that clause right now, and it's something that we're talking to EPA about as well.
You mentioned that we've completed phases 1 and 2 of the consent decree project. Have we done any testing with hydraulic models or otherwise to determine the efficacy of the hundreds of millions of dollars we spent on phase 1 and phase 2?
So we've not done any formal testing or official testing in that regard. We did complete a flow metering program in the fall of 2020 and in the spring of 2021 to collect additional data throughout the system. And so that data can be used going forward it could potentially be used going forward to complete some of that. We do know that there are sanitary sewer overflows that continue to occur in those basins. And so one of the projects in particular at the Dilgley Drive area is going to address that issue. And there are others in the phase 1 area that we're also working to develop right now.
Cedar Grove in particular.
I think it's important to note as well, just the structure of the consent decree. Mayor Perkins mentioned this. What the consent decree was set up to do, and this is a fairly, this is a template approach that EPA often uses. The consent decree required the city to find and fix defects in the collection system and fix those defects. You had to work in 5 phases and work your way through the city. There was a separate timeline within the consent decree for completion of capacity improvements. So effectively, what the consent decree required the city to work through the system and work here and here and here and here and here. And then by the end of the term of the consent decree, you needed to go back and complete capacity improvements. So that kind of an approach really makes you a bit laser focused on defects and problems in the system, and it sets you up ultimately to come back and address capacity improvements later in the system.
I think I asked a bad question, which you and the mayor both kindly answered. I asked about whether the consent decree was focused exclusively on sanitary sewer overflows, and the answer to that is no, because as the mayor and you both just explained, it requires us to fix every defect, regardless of its contribution to a sanitary sewer overflow. But the consent decree is focused on the wastewater collection system and not on our drinking water delivery system. Is that right?
That is 100% correct.
And so part of what we've done when we reallocated $100 million in the summer of 20 was move some of that money away from the collection system to the drinking water system, or we did not do that? It's all still collection?
No, that money has been used to fund wastewater projects.
Okay, and nothing else?
Correct. There's other funds that the city had that's been used to fund, for example, the Amos Water Treatment Plant and so forth. Going forward, you do have a need for funding for both systems. And so going forward, that likely will need to be a discussion point.
Well, I've made this comment previously, and I'll probably make it every time you're here, Mr. Darlington. The city can't fix a problem that has been ongoing for generations on the backs of ratepayers to any more than we already have. So we all know that there's another rate increase that was scheduled before we took office that will go into effect next year. But the solution to additional funding, whatever it is not to increase people's water bills any more than they already have been. That's a regressive cost that hurts our poorest citizens the most. So we've got to find another solution.
We're past the point where raising rates is the answer to the problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we all agree on that. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilman, just to add, they already referenced it. Some things that we're doing, state funding is available now. Federal funding, more federal funding is available now, and even more will be available when the infrastructure bill is passed. Bond proposal as well. Thank you for your support on that and giving the citizens an opportunity. So we are exploring every possible solution to this problem.
Yeah, I did want to mention one of our major problems with sewer, the Southern Hills Interceptor, is in the bond program.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no further questions for Mr. Daniel or Mr. Darlington, that concludes my comments.
Ready to move on? We'll move to public hearing. I'm sorry, public comment. Proper standards report. Anybody have anything for the proper standards? We did that yesterday. The reports, anything on surety bond or revenue collection? Okay. And that brings us to public hearing. We're going to call the meeting to order for ordinance number 177 of 2021.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Second. All in favor? Aye.
You don't have to vote to open the public hearing.
All right.
Just open it and
You
ask
want to
if
read the
there's-
ordinance?
Yeah. It's
Be
ordinance.
loud now so we can hear you.
It's a public hearing on ordinance 177 of 2021, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the amount of $5,675,000 of revenue bonds, series 2021 of the city of Shreveport, state of Louisiana, prescribing the form, terms, and conditions of said bonds, designating the date, denominations, place of payment, and paying agent of said bonds, providing for the payment thereof in principal and interest, approving the forms of a limited offering memorandum and bond placement agreement, and providing for other matters in connection therewith.
Okay, does the administration have any presentation, anything on it? Okay. Is it, anyone want to speak in favor of it? Is that correct? Any audience want to speak in favor of ordinance number 177? Seeing none, now, does anyone want to speak in opposition of it? Okay, seeing none, then we'll close the hearing. Okay. Any, Madam Clerk, is there any legislation to be added today?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. And that will bring us to public comments on agenda items. I'm going to ask that the clerk, Danielle, would you please read the rules of procedure in regards to speaking on the agenda and what you can and cannot speak on?
Yes. In accordance with section 1.11 of the rules of procedure, at the administrative conference on Mondays, the public can speak on any matter of public concern, regardless of whether or not an item is on the agenda. During the regular meetings on Tuesdays, the public can only speak on matters which are on the agenda.
Thank you. And the vice chair now will handle the public comments, and she will control the time. Madam Vice Chair.
Marvin Muhammad.
I'm sorry, it wasn't clear. We couldn't speak on what? I'm sorry.
At the regular meeting, you can only speak on matters which are on the agenda.
Mr. Muhammad, you were
Mr.
just
Muhammad,
called
your
up.
turn to speak.
had some notes that I sat down somewhere, but I stepped out. Marvin Muhammad. On February 18 of 2020, the state of Louisiana, along with the Louisiana, with some of its partners, LED, they held a press conference at the Hunter Industrial Park. On that day, they talked about how hundreds of thousands of dollars that was invested in infrastructure, got that site shovel ready. Fast forward, about 10 months later, on May 7, 2021, Governor Edwards came and announced that Amazon had agreed to come to the city of Shreveport. Now, months later, we're on the threshold of new things in the city of Shreveport. $200 million capital improvement project, 1,100, and I believe 8 indirect jobs, 800 construction jobs. But the question is, what do we do now? City Councilwoman has put on the agenda a TIF with the purpose of setting up an economic development district. If you look at the TIF that goes from State Highway 3194 to State Highway 71, and those of us who are numerically challenged, that is the intersection of North Market and MLK. That goes all the way to Hearn and State Highway 71. That 2 mile and 2.3 mile stretch, if you are traveling, you'll notice blight. You'll notice shopping malls that are empty. At the 3194 and 71 intersection, there's a strip mall that is anchored by Brookshire's. Right now, they're struggling with at least 50% occupancy rate. That's a problem. The proposal by Councilwoman Taylor aims to change that. Why? Because now you're able to now take dollars, not add additional expense to our taxpayers, because we're going to be establishing a baseline, but it then allows us to take those dollars in the TIF, in that district, and allows us to invest those dollars back in that desired area. It's a great opportunity. It is time for us to begin to see North Market just as we see Euro Drive. This is a golden opportunity, and I can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good point.
Sammy Mears, number 137.
Sammy Mears, 1901 Centenary Boulevard, apartment M110, Shreveport 71101. One girl tries out for a drama, asking her boyfriend to undo her locker, and then she says, "Do you think I'm a Southern belle?" He says, "No, you might just be more like a Northern ding-dong."
Not a.
I think it's really great to consider recognizing Deputy Marshal Chapman Swan and Deputy Marshal Lance Swan for saving a person's life. This refers to saving the life of a gunshot victim, and it's really a shame that people have been firing all these gunshots at people who, it just doesn't matter where they are, or at home or church or anywhere. We really need to be safe in our homes, and it seems like that people don't really care. They just, or even at churches. So the two cops need to be recognized, and we need to be really safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Tim Magner, 123.
Tim Magner with the Greater Shreveport Chamber of Commerce, 400 Edward Street. First of all, I wanted to, agenda item 123 is ordinance 123 is on the agenda again. I'd like to ask you for a favorable vote in response to that. We've been working very diligently with the city attorney and administration, and believe we have an agreement that both protects the city and most importantly allows us to take a piece of history in our community and continue to make that a viable part of our community. The Chamber has committed to invest in the building in downtown and in our community as a demonstration of not only our commitment to the community, but our goal of trying to build business and to grow community. So we would welcome your vote in support of that. I want to take a particular moment here to thank Councilwoman Fuller for her efforts, Councilman Nicholson, the rest of the council, the mayor, his administration, Chief Whitehorn, Mr. Latier, and Danielle Brown, and Shelley Regal for all their efforts. Again, I believe this is the kind of public-private partnership that allows the city to move forward and invest in the infrastructure that we all hold dear. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Kenneth Kraft, Ordinance 154. Mr. Kraft.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Council, Mayor. Ordinance 154 is a good one. But I'm pleased that the revenues are high from the sales tax, record pace, 2 months to go. And we should add that $14 million to the operating budget reserve. It'll be our largest operating budget reserve in our history as a percentage of the general fund. It's never been that high. Reached 8.8% about 30-something years ago on John Hussey's second term, but this will easily go beyond that. And from that operating budget reserve, it gives us a good foundation when we meet Thursday or our general fund budget hearings, when we look at revenues. That's the big dog. It's going to be over 60% of the general fund this year. It as recently as 2 years ago, it was 54%. And let's do that and move forward and have some good budget hearings. And shoot me if you want. It's not on the agenda, but Black Knights 21, Army Air Corps 14.
Marsha Everett, Ordinance 181. Marsha Everett.
Your Honor, honorable council members, my name is Marsha Everett. I'm here regarding Ordinance 181, which is a zoning case, 21-147-C, which is for 220 East Stevenson Street. You may be familiar with the property. It was the old Knights of Columbus building close to Corby's Golf Course. We are requesting a change from a C1 commercial to an R2 residential. We want to renovate, paint it, and have it for personal residence for me and my family. We tried doing a business out of it. The building had been abandoned for 2 years. We bought it, tried to do a cleaning business, but with COVID and staffing shortages, we just couldn't make the business go. So we were hoping, looked at it and thought, well, you know, it could make a good residence and clean it up, paint it up, and the MPC process has been completed. It was voted on unanimous approval with no objections. So I'm just here to request your approval, and if you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't anticipate any objection to your request for a downzone.
Thank you.
Carla Bunton, 154. That's all I have.
Okay. We have no executive appointments to be considered today, and so there are no items under a consent agenda for introduction to be adopted. Madam Clerk, please proceed to the regular agenda legislation.
Resolution 124 to establish an intergovernmental committee.
Move to table.
Second.
Motion and second to table. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes with 2 out and 5 for. So passes.
Resolution 128 approving an annual payment in lieu of tax in accordance with a memorandum of understanding between the Shreveport Home Mortgage Authority and SPC Development LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes. 6-4, one out of the chamber.
Resolution 131, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between the city of Shreveport and United Nonprofits, Inc.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
and a second by the vice chair. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes.
Resolution 132, authorizing the mayor to execute an option to ground lease between the city of Shreveport and Shreveport HP Allendale LLC.
Motion to postpone.
Motion to postpone.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A second. Any discussion? Let's vote. That passes, approved, postpone.
Resolution 133, authorizing the mayor to execute an option to ground lease between the city of Shreveport and Shreveport Millennium Housing 4 LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that's passed.
Resolution 134, authorizing the mayor to execute a cooperative endeavor agreement between the city of Shreveport and the state of Louisiana, Facility Planning and Control Division of Administration for the city of Shreveport, District 3 Road Rehabilitation, Planning and Construction.
Motion?
So
By the
moved.
chair, second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. $134 is approved.
Resolution 135, to amend Resolution Number 87 of 2021, which was adopted to execute a contract between the city of Shreveport, Louisiana, and C. Edwards Concepts LLC to provide curbside recycling within the limits of Shreveport.
Motion postpone.
Do I have a second? Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that motion passes.
Resolution 136, to repeal Resolution Number 238 of 2010, which requires the city attorney to provide a report concerning the collection of surety bond forfeitures at the first regular city council meeting of each month.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes.
Resolution 137, to recognize Deputy Marshal Chazen Swan and Deputy Marshal Lance Swan for their life-saving heroics in saving the life of a gunshot victim.
Move to postpone.
Second.
Motion to postpone, a second, and discussion. Let's vote. And that passes. Postpone.
Resolution 138, a resolution in support of and consenting to Caddo Parish's creation of the Amazon TIF District, State of Louisiana, wholly within the city limits of the city of Shreveport.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councilman Nixon.
Mayor Perkins or Mr. Whitehorn, does the administration have a position on this legislation that it would like to share? Well, let me ask.
You're talking about the TIF.
Yes, sir, let me ask a
Yeah,
different
let me-
question then. So,
I can-
as I've told Councilwoman Taylor, I'm supportive in concept of a TIF, but it's been suggested to me by people who know more about this than I do that we could use some more time to
Mhm.
talk about the details of how we're doing this. And if that's the administration's view, I'd like to hear it.
Yes, so we met with Councilwoman Taylor and actually Councilman Green to discuss the TIF. It's our understanding, and the legislation today is just an initiation. This is not anything that the city is bound by, and we will go through a phased approach that will be that all the questions that we have right now, we can bake them into each phase and make sure that all the questions are answered before we actually enact this TIF. Because it will take council approval to turn the switch on for this TIF. So this is like step one, and we'll get all the questions answered, and, you know, I can state at that time if I'm comfortable or not when we come to turning it on. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Mayor, if I may, you will be looking at each council district, whatever you come up with, right?
Yes, we'll analyze every council district.
Thank you.
Also, at the same time, Councilman Nicholson, as the mayor said, this is a phased-in approach. There are only two entities that can set up a TIF district, and this economic development district, we, the city, are in control of that. We would establish what is and what this money cannot be used for. So at any time that we're not in agreement with what the parish done, we can set up our own TIF district. So it's phased in as we go.
Yeah, and the only thing as far as time goes, even with the passing of this resolution, we'll still have time afterwards to iron out all the details, because we don't have them all right now, no.
So, Mr. Letier, is it correct that this legislation only indicates the council's willingness to see a TIF created and does not bind us to conclude that process?
That's correct.
Does it fix the geographic boundaries of the TIF that's proposed?
I'm not sure, but I believe so. But I
Yes,
have
the
to-
geographic boundaries are here.
I would
They
have
would be
to
considered to be in
defer to
District 8.
Councilwoman Taylor on that.
No concerns from the administration?
Not at this time. I mean, if council would like, because, you know, if council would like, if there's other council members that are interested, we can give updates to council as we go about this process before, again, we come back to you to say, let's initiate it.
Well, Councilwoman Taylor, I think the votes are there to pass this, but I would not mind the opportunity to sit with the administration and Mr. Letier and maybe other stakeholders. I got a call from Commissioner Jackson for the first time a couple of days ago about this. So I want to make sure that I understand the consequences of what we're doing, and I don't think a 2-week delay would impede us. And so if you would consider postponing for 2 weeks or until the next meeting, which is 10 days away, I would appreciate that.
No, I'm not going to go in and delay it at this particular point, because we still have our leverage to go over and say what it is that we want to do within the TIF. It's our overwhelming support that we have on here. An economic development district is, how could it be not advantageous, especially for this particular area who cries for economic development all the time. And we are the people who actually get to leverage what it is that we're going to do in this text for the excess use of sales taxes that represent this district.
Is it a sales tax
Yes.
TIF?
No, it's not property taxes. It's property taxes for the parish.
So the
Councilman Butcher.
just so the map attached is not exactly the one that would be the TIF for the city. It says Caddo Perry, the boundaries.
Amazon sits within the city.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just looking at this. It says Parish of Caddo, Amazon, TIF District. So this is exactly what will be. Councilman Nicholson asked about the boundaries. This attachment is what the boundaries are.
That's where we're looking at the boundaries, and
Okay.
turn around here, and at any time that we can look to go over here and change these boundaries.
Councilman,
ahead.
if I can just add, Councilman Nicholson and Mr. Chairman, and with the baseline being established, that baseline, everything up to that baseline is gonna come back to the city.
Correct.
Right? Everything above the baseline, which we'd imagine Amazon would be bringing value to the area, everything above the baseline will be reinvested into that particular area. Councilwoman Taylor has already talked about, you know, some of the economic development. We had Mr. Muhammad come up and talk about the need for economic development in that particular district. The same applies. I mean, this is going to be setting a precedent, at least for our administration, for this council. The same will apply for any district here that is looking to promote economic development in particular areas. But obviously, a piece of this recipe is to have something like Amazon or some big development come to your district. So as an administration, if we find areas in the city that have been historically neglected, or needs a boost economically, we will support each and every council member that comes to us for that particular support.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Call for the vote.
Yes.
Okay. Passes. Madam Clerk, will you proceed to the introduction of resolutions not to be adopted prior to December 14th, 2021?
Resolution 139, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between the city of Shreveport and Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC for the purpose of an external audit of the city for fiscal year January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. And Resolution 140, authorizing the mayor to execute an acceptance act of donation and permanent utility servitude agreement between the city of Shreveport and Linwood Development LLC, hereinafter called Owner, and acting herein through Sammy A. Majalis, member manager for the water mains and related facilities to serve Aegean and Majalis subdivision unit number 2.
Is there a motion to introduce
So
these?
moved.
So moved by Councilman Butcher and, I'm sorry, Green? Who's?
It's Green.
Okay. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you proceed with the introduction of ordinances not to be adopted prior to December the 14th, 2021?
Ordinance 184, amending the 2021 retained risk fund budget. Ordinance 185, amending the 2021 general fund budget. Ordinance 186, amending the 2021 general fund budget. Ordinance 187, amending the 2021 general fund budget. Ordinance 188, amending the 2021 capital projects fund budget, appropriating the funds authorized herein. Ordinance 189, amending the 2021 capital projects fund budget, appropriating the funds authorized herein. Ordinance 190, amending the 2021 water and sewerage enterprise fund budget. Ordinance 191, declaring the city's interest in certain land as surplus and our intention to donate certain land acquired by the Department of Community Development to Volunteers of America of North Louisiana. Ordinance 192 to amend Chapter 38 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the rental dwelling unit registration program. Ordinance 193 to amend various articles and sections in the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Unified Development Code relative to rental dwelling units, their registration, maintenance, and inspection. Ordinance 194 to amend the Metropolitan Planning Commission's fee schedule for the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Unified Development Code relative to fees for the rental dwelling unit registration program as well as for garage sales. Ordinance 195 to amend Chapter 58, Article 4, Division 1, and Chapter 78, Article 8, Division 1 of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Code of Ordinances relative to litter and dumping.
The motion to introduce
So
the
moved.
ordinance, the second?
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you proceed with the ordinance on second reading and final passage?
Ordinance 123 declaring the city's interest in certain vacant land as surplus and our intention to transfer certain vacant land to the Greater Shreveport Chamber of Commerce. And Amendment 1 was already adopted. There is an Amendment 2. And Amendment number 2 deletes or removes from the files the original proposed cooperative endeavor agreement exhibit and the previously adopted Amendment number 1 to Ordinance number 123 of 2021, and it substitutes the attached cooperative endeavor agreement.
So moved on the amendment.
Okay.
Second.
Second motion. And any discussion? Let's vote on the amendment. Okay, that passes. Now,
So move as amended.
okay, so move on amendment. Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
First and foremost, I would like to thank Jesus, and then I would like to thank every staff member who laid hands on this to make this a successful piece of legislation that it has today after all of these weeks
Yes.
of revision and revision and revision.
Thank you.
I appreciate all of you for your work, and thank you to the Chamber for your patience.
Thank you kindly. Let's vote. Okay, and now I believe we vote on the original.
Motion on the ordinance as amended.
I have a
That
motion.
was as amended, yeah.
Okay.
Second.
No, didn't we just vote?
We're done, yeah, it's done.
Yeah,
Already
that's what
got
you just
that?
voted on, those as
I
amended.
did, okay.
I think I caught you off guard with my Oscar
No, it's okay.
acceptance.
All right, got it.
Ordinance 149, amending Section 10-69 of Chapter 10, Article 4, Division 2 of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Code of Ordinances with respect to the fee and term for alcoholic beverage handling employee cards.
Motion postpone.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Discussion.
Okay, Councilman Nicholson.
This legislation, if adopted, will increase what the people who work at our grocery stores and our restaurants have to pay for ABO cards. We've postponed it twice, and I'm always happy to do that when there are no adverse consequences, but why would we do this? And why would we increase these fees? If we're not going to increase them, why don't we just vote it down? I guess is my question for the council.
Mr. Chair, the reason I postponed it is so that what you're saying would not happen, and I assume that we wanted to work this out to see what else we would replace it with, or we could just vote it up or down. But I was wanting to know if, in fact, there was something that we wanted to put in that would eliminate what you were speaking of.
Well, no, I appreciate that. So if we do nothing, if we vote this down, then the fee for an ABO card is going to stay at $24. And if we vote it up, then the fee's going to go up to $40. So
And if we postpone it, nothing happens.
Well, that's true. But maybe if we postpone it this time, we can vote it down next time.
There you go.
How about that? All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any some further discussion? Let's vote. To postpone, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that is approved. Postponement is approved.
Ordinance 172, amending the 2021 general fund budget.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Let's vote. That's approved.
Ordinance 173, amending the 2021 golf enterprise fund budget.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Let's vote. And that's approved.
Ordinance 174, amending the 2021 budget for the general fund.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? May we vote, please? That's approved.
Ordinance 175, amending the 2021 budget for the Riverfront Development Fund.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. That's approved.
Ordinance 176 to revise Chapter 22, Article 2, Building and Building Regulations, Standards of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Code of Ordinances relative to distance of private improvements to city infrastructure.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Let's vote. And that's approved.
Ordinance 177, authorizing the issuance of the amount of $5,675,000 and no dollars of revenue bond series 2021 of the City of Shreveport, State of Louisiana, prescribing the form, terms, and conditions of said bonds, designating the date, denominations, place of payment, and paying agent of said bonds, providing for the payment thereof in principal and interest, approving the forms of a limited offering memorandum and bond placement agreement, and providing for other matters in connection therewith. And there is one amendment. Amendment number 1 replaces the existing ordinance with the attached. This amendment inserts the city's fiscal agent and provides funding instructions after 6 months of closing.
So move on the amendment.
Second. Any discussion? Let's vote on the amendment, please. Okay, that's approved now.
So move on the ordinance as amended.
Second. Any discussion? Let's vote. Okay, that passes.
Ordinance number 178, an ordinance to amend various articles and sections of the City of Shreveport, Louisiana Unified Development Code relative to garage sales and their approval process.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. Okay, passes.
Ordinance 183 to amend section 66-141 of chapter 66 personnel, article 3, health benefits for the City of Shreveport Code of Ordinances relative to contributions by active employees in the city, and this needs to be postponed due to layover requirements in the charter.
Motion postponed.
Second.
Motion and a second to postpone. Any discussion? Let's vote. Motion on 183 is approved.
Ordinance 124, zoning case number 21-76-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the southwest corner of Milam Street and Arkansas Avenue, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, Louisiana, from C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to
Move to
C3.
postpone.
Motion to postpone.
Motion second.
Council, for the record, this ordinance is coming up on 90 days, and I wanted to verify with the city attorney's office that no further action is needed, that a postponement is sufficient to give more time on this.
Don't have any idea?
I have no idea.
Ma'am, we didn't understand a word you said. You're gonna have to speak before we can hear you.
She says this is coming up on 90 days.
Yeah, this is coming up on 90 days. You guys have to act within 90 days
What's the expiration?
before the next meeting. I thought.
That's what the law says.
I just wanted to verify for the record that a postponement effectuates giving this more time and there's not any further action needed.
That's correct. Okay.
Postpone.
Motion to postpone. And we had a second, so any discussion? Let's vote.
Who? Nicholson.
Okay. Approved. Postpone.
Ordinance 125, zoning case number 21-100-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the southeast corner of Piermont Road and Willard Avenue, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, Louisiana, from R17 Single Family Residential District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Could we hear from Mr. Clark briefly, please, on this?
Okay. Mr. Clark?
Mr. Clark, I've expressed my concerns about this project going forward without a curb cut on Piermont. Has that issue been resolved?
Yes, sir. As you recall, we have a curb cut on Piermont and a curb cut at the rear of the property on Willard.
Are you satisfied that that will address the traffic concern that we discussed initially?
As I shared with you, Councilman Nicholson, we reached out to the traffic engineer for the city of Shreveport to discuss any impact on traffic on Willard Avenue, and he felt that by having access to Piermont and a subsequent access to Willard, that would not create any additional traffic problems.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion? Let's vote. Okay. Passes.
Ordinance 179, zoning case number 21-136-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the northwest side of Shreveport-Barksdale Highway at the intersection of Riley Lane, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, from C2 Corridor Commercial District to C3 General Commercial District.
Move to postpone.
Okay, motion to postpone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. Okay, approved.
Ordinance 180, zoning case number 21-139-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the north side of Gladstone Boulevard, approximately 260 feet west of Wynd Avenue, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, Louisiana, from R2 Multifamily Residential District to CUC Urban Corridor District.
So moved.
Motion. Second?
Second.
Okay, second by Councilman Nicholson. Any other discussion?
There's some. You knew that was coming, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I spoke with Mr. Clark about this because I do feel like it encroaches on a residential street. There's rental property, there's multifamily property, but there's a lot of single-family occupancy as well. This is just off of a main corridor, and I asked if there was a less intense zoning that would allow what the developer would like to do. And he said that this would make the least intense impact on that area, and that there will be opportunities to look at the site plan review and other things as the development moves forward. So that's why I'm okay with this right now. Thanks.
All right, so, and that's approved.
Ordinance 181, zoning case number 21-147-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the north side of East Stevenson Street, approximately 260 feet west of Beverly Place, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, from C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to R2 Multifamily Residential District.
So moved. Motion, second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. And that's approved.
Ordinance number 182, zoning case number 21-148-C, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the City of Shreveport Unified Development Code by rezoning property located on the northwest corner of Jewella Avenue and Woodrow Street, Shreveport, Caddo Parish, from C2 Corridor Commercial District to C3 General Commercial District.
Motion to postpone.
Motion postponed, second. Do we have a discussion? Let's vote. Postponement. That's okay, been approved. Postponed. Madam Clerk, is there any table legislation to be removed from the table today?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, do you have any property standards or ABO appeals? We have MPC case 21-101 appeal to consider today.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
This is connected to the zoning case that you postponed in Bowman's district.
Motion to postpone.
Second.
Okay, motion postponed, second. Any discussion? Please vote.
I'm trying to see why we still waiting on comments. Because I didn't hear you call my name, another name that's with you name.
And that motion passes to postpone. Madam Clerk, are there any appeals today?
Justice for Tommy McLaughlin! Justice for Tommy McLaughlin!
Justice for Tommy McLaughlin!
Justice for every child!
Justice for every child!
Justice for Wavy Austin!
Justice for Wavy Austin!
Please remove those, if you can't, please.
Justice for Tommy McLaughlin!
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 Mr. Chair, if nothing else come, let's dismiss. We can dismiss, and then we have executive.
Council is dismissed.